Someone has shot my parents. I think they're all bleeding. They're on the floor.
What suburb are you in?
They're not breathing. What do I do?
What suburb are you in?
North Ride.
North Ride.
Yes.
And your parents are
They're not
both,
moving.
they're both being shot, have they?
I don't know. There's a lot of blood everywhere. My mama.
Just hold on. Yeah, we will. We're sending the ambulance now.
In the early hours of July 10th, 2001, a tranquil suburban home in North Ryde, New South Wales, became the site of an unimaginable horror. A frantic call to the police from a young man named Seth Gonzalez reported the brutal slaying of his parents and sister. What seemed at first to be a shocking and random act of violence soon revealed itself to be something far more complex and sinister. As investigators delved deeper into the case, inconsistencies in Seth's story and strange details at the crime scene began to surface, unraveling a web of deceit, betrayal, and dark secrets. This is the story of a family torn apart by a crime that would shock a nation and leave everyone questioning what really happened that night. Late on the night of July 10, 2001, the North Ryde Police Department in New South Wales, Australia, received an unexpected distress call. "Yes, I'm gonna shot my parents, I think. They're all bleeding there on the floor. What suburb are you in? They're not bleeding. What do I do? What suburb are you in? North Ryde. They're not moving. They're both shot, aren't they? I don't know. There's so much blood everywhere. Is my mom over there? Help me." The dispatcher kept their voice steady, trying to provide some reassurance. "Yeah, we will. We're sending an ambulance now." "All right," came the hesitant response. When police officers and medical personnel arrived at the scene, they were met with a devastating sight. Out of a family of 4, only one person had survived. The lone survivor, huddled in a corner of the garage, appeared deeply shaken, and the officers felt a pang of sorrow for what had transpired. However, their emotions took a turn when just 3 days later, this same person was already inquiring about the family's inheritance with visible anxiety. At the funeral, as loved ones gathered to mourn, he sang the song "One Sweet Day," but his actions soon raised red flags. Using government compensation, he purchased a luxury car, and this conspicuous behavior quickly caught the attention of the police. It wasn't long before the truth began to unravel. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was a tale of deceit. He had not only manipulated his parents and relatives, but had also spun a web of lies that entangled everyone around him, including himself. Despite being convicted in 2004, he consistently proclaimed his innocence. Yet, on April 3, 2023, his appeal was denied once more. As of now, he remains behind bars, his pleas unheard. But what really happened that night? To understand, we need to go back to 2001 when it all began. The incident took place in North Ryde, a suburb of New South Wales near Macquarie University. Often called the Silicon Valley of Australia, this area is home to many high-tech companies like Microsoft, HP, Oracle, with its convenient transportation system, including a train station and multiple bus routes. North Ryde is just 15 kilometers from the central business district, making it a desirable location for middle-class families to settle. The Gonzalez family's home was situated at 6 Collins Street, North Ryde, a 2-story villa with 4 bedrooms symbolizing comfort and success. But beneath the surface, something far darker was brewing, something that would eventually tear this family apart. The Gonzalez family's home was more than just a place to live. It was a symbol of their hard-earned success. With 3 bathrooms, 2 parking spaces, and a spacious lawn, it was a magnificent property by any standard. In 1999, Teddy Gonzalez purchased the villa for 200,000 Australian dollars and immediately began renovations to turn it into the family's dream home. By December 2000, the family of 4 officially moved in, ready to start a new chapter of their lives. Teddy Gonzalez was a man of resilience and determination. Born in 1954 in Baguio City, Philippines, Teddy was the 4th child in a family that faced constant financial hardship. But instead of letting his circumstances define him, Teddy worked tirelessly to create a better future. He focused on his education, and his efforts paid off when he was accepted into the law faculty at Baguio University, a significant achievement for someone from such humble beginnings. As Teddy neared graduation, his life took another turn when he met Mary Loiva Claridades, a bright young woman who was 3 years his junior and a junior at the university. Their connection was immediate, and they soon became inseparable, sharing dreams and ambitions that would shape their future together. Teddy and Mary's love story began with an instant connection. The two fell in love at first sight. Mary, the eldest in her family, was known for her gentle and kind-hearted nature. Like Teddy, she was also incredibly hardworking, always striving to make the most of every opportunity. In 1977, shortly after Mary graduated, the couple got married, beginning a life together filled with both ambition and affection. Despite Teddy's intense dedication to his career, he never lost sight of the importance of romance in their relationship. He often surprised Mary with small but meaningful gestures, an unexpected bouquet of flowers or a candlelit dinner, to keep their love alive. Their family began to grow with the birth of their son, Seth Gonzalez, on September 16, 1980. His name held a special significance, one that Teddy planned to reveal to Seth on his 21st birthday. 3 years later, on July 9, 1983, their daughter, Claudine, was born, completing their family. Teddy's career flourished over the years. Starting out as a lawyer, he quickly began to accumulate wealth through strategic real estate investments. His success didn't stop there. He gradually expanded into various other business ventures, including audio stores, pharmacies, hotels, and more. With each new venture, the family's wealth grew, and they enjoyed a life of comfort and security, all built on Teddy's hard work and determination. While Teddy was highly accomplished, Mary's family had achieved even greater success. Mary's brother-in-law's father served as the mayor of Baguio City from 1986 to 1988, and during this time, Teddy held the position of secretary to the mayor. The family had established itself not just in business but also in the political sphere, further enhancing their influence and standing. In 1989, Teddy poured all his savings into building a 4-story hotel with 40 rooms. The business was thriving, and it seemed like the Gonzalez family's prosperity would continue to grow. However, less than a year later, a massive 7.7 magnitude earthquake hit Baguio City, claiming the lives of 142 people in an instant. The quake not only destroyed Teddy's burgeoning business, but also his home. Amid the chaos, the family faced a terrifying ordeal. During the earthquake, Seth, their young son, became trapped in a stairwell. Without hesitation, Teddy risked his own life to save him, crawling into the narrow crevice to pull his son to safety. This act of bravery left Teddy with a chronic ligament injury, a physical reminder of the devastating day. Fortunately, despite the destruction around them, the entire family survived the ordeal unharmed. Teddy and Mary believed they were protected by a higher power, and this belief gave them the strength to start anew. But instead of rebuilding in the Philippines, they made a bold decision. They would emigrate to Australia, where Mary's sister Emily and her family were already well established. In 1990, Teddy began the next chapter of his life by reviewing and retaking the exams necessary to obtain his law license in Australia. Determined as ever, he set his sights on building a new life for his family in a foreign land, one that offered both opportunity and stability. Despite the hardships they had endured, Teddy and Mary remained resilient, their focus on creating a bright future for their children. By 1993, Teddy had established a successful immigration law office in Australia. With Mary managing internal operations and coordinating the office, Teddy focused on external affairs and client acquisition. His expertise and dedication quickly attracted a steady stream of clients, and their business flourished. Within a few short years, the Gonzalez family had firmly secured their place in the middle class of their community. The family's deep Catholic faith played a central role in their lives. Teddy and Mary not only set up a home altar, but also attended Mass 3 to 4 times a week. embedding their spirituality into their daily routine. Their religious devotion was reflected in their approach to raising their children. They placed immense importance on their children's education, driven by the hope that Seth and Claudine would surpass even their own achievements. To that end, Teddy and Mary spared no expense in providing the best educational opportunities for their children. They believed in a balanced approach, rewarding their children for their successes, while also disciplining them when necessary to ensure they stayed focused on their studies. However, this well-intentioned focus on success and discipline would over time inadvertently sow the seeds of a tragic outcome, one that no one bore. Claudine was eager to continue celebrating, texting her friends to make plans, but before she could finalize those, something went terribly wrong. Claudine suddenly lost all contact. At 11, Seep returned home. Within minutes, he placed a frantic call to the police. The very call you heard at the beginning of this account. "We're sending an ambulance now," the dispatcher assured him. But Seth was already in a state of panic. He ran to his neighbors, desperate for help, exclaiming, "I saw two figures," alarmed. The neighbors immediately called the police again. Seeing that Seth was about to rush back into the house, one neighbor held him back, fearing for his safety. Suddenly Seth shouted, "I know CPRA," and before anyone could stop him, he darted into the house. The neighbor, risking his own safety, followed Seth and dragged him back outside. Moments later, police and medical personnel arrived, but it was already too late. Teddy, 46, Mary, 43, and their 18-year-old daughter, Claudine, were all dead. The medical staff quickly determined that none of them had been shot. Instead, they had been killed with a sharp object. Mary's severe neck wound was particularly notable, indicating the brutality of the attack. A K-9 unit was deployed to search for the two figures Seth claimed to have seen, but the dogs couldn't pick up any scent, possibly due to the rain that night. As Seth collapsed to the ground in despair, Senior Officer Mike approached to comfort him, but also to gather information. He asked Seth if anything unusual had happened recently. Seth recalled something disturbing. "After my sister's birthday party the night before, while the whole family was driving home, we were attacked on the road. A car sped past us and someone yelled, 'Aye, you Asians.'" This statement caught Officer Mike's attention. He had noticed some strange writing on the wall at the crime scene, and now he had a potential lead. It could be a hate crime targeting Asians. At 3 a.m. on July 11th, Seth provided the police with a detailed account of his day. He explained that at the time of the crime, he had been out with friends. The meeting hadn't been spontaneous. It had been planned the day before, with a solid alibi in place. The police initially ruled out Seth as a suspect, but as they delved deeper into the investigation, the truth behind this horrific crime would prove to be far more complex and sinister than anyone could have imagined. On July 13th, Seth held a press conference, offering a substantial reward of $100,000 odd for any leads in the case. Standing before the cameras, he struggled to find the words to convey his grief and desperation, to picture the four corners of the world. "In my world, we were the four," he said, his voice wavering. "My family, friends, and myself would like to ask anyone out there to please help us." Despite the emotional plea, there was something unsettling about Seth's demeanor. And as the investigation progressed, more questions than answers began to emerge, suggesting that this might not have been an attack targeting Asians as initially suspected. Several details raised red flags for investigators. First, nearly $1,000 odd in cash was found untouched in Teddy and Mary's wallets, indicating that robbery was not the motive. Additionally, the house was eerily clean and tidy, despite the fact that closets and drawers in every room had been left open. The clothes inside were neatly arranged, almost as if they had been deliberately displayed rather than rummaged through. The brutality of the murders was particularly disturbing. All three victims had been viciously attacked. Mary suffered a severe neck wound, while Claudine had sustained 7 stab wounds and multiple blunt force injuries, evidenced by a dent in the wall of her room. The 2 knives missing from the kitchen were later identified as the weapons used in the killings. Despite the violence, the family's 6 dogs were unharmed and had been locked in the laundry room, raising further suspicion. The only sign of forced entry was in the kitchen, where a window had been broken. However, this clue quickly became questionable when investigators found no fingerprints on the kitchen countertops, an area that would likely have been touched by anyone entering or exiting the home. These inconsistencies led the investigators to reconsider their initial theories. The scene appeared too staged, too methodical, to align with a random act of violence or a hate crime. The more they uncovered, the more it seemed that this tragedy was rooted in something much more personal and calculated, something that couldn't be easily explained away as a targeted attack against Asians. As the investigation delved deeper, the facade of a grieving son began to crack, and the possibility of a more sinister truth started to come into focus. The investigation soon uncovered critical evidence that cast doubt on the initial narrative. It was revealed that the window frame had been broken outward, suggesting the break-in had been staged. The varying times of death among the victims indicated that the ordeal spanned at least 3 hours. By measuring the body temperatures, investigators determined that Claudine and Mary had died first, with Teddy following later. Bloodstains found on a briefcase and handbag at the scene suggested that these items had been deliberately placed after the murders, not dropped during a struggle. This detail, along with the timing of events, led the police to rethink their approach. The focus shifted to determining the exact time of death for each victim. The timeline became clearer as investigators pieced together the final moments of the victims. Claudine was likely killed between 4:10 p.m. and 4:30 p.m., as her last text message was sent at 4:10 p.m., and an open book on her desk indicated she was studying at the time. The Fran's death was estimated to be around 5:30 p.m. She had left work at 4:50 p.m. and would have arrived home within 30 to 40 minutes. The fact that she was still wearing her shoes and had not placed her handbag in its usual spot suggested she was attacked as soon as she entered the house. Teddy's death was estimated to have occurred around 6:00 p.m. after leaving work at 6:23 p.m. He made 2 phone calls to his home. When he arrived, he was likely attacked immediately, as indicated by his work attire and the briefcase found beside it. These details pointed to a carefully orchestrated series of murders, not a random attack. If this had been a targeted assault against Asians, the assailant wouldn't have patiently waited for each family member to return home. Moreover, they wouldn't have arrived without a weapon, only to use what was available in the house. The perpetrator even took the time to shower afterward, as evidenced by water found on the bathroom floor. 6 days after the incident, police asked Seth to recount the events of that night in detail. This time, inconsistencies in his story began to emerge. Seth claimed he arrived in front of his house around 6:00 p.m., but didn't go inside because he received a text from friends saying that dinner had been delayed by 2 hours. He said it was raining, so he chose to wait in his car and called the house, but no one answered. He then drove to another location to meet a different friend in Blacktown, a town 28 kilometers away. According to Seth, he spent 2 hours searching for the friend's new address, finally meeting him at 8:00 p.m. They had dinner, played video games, and Seth drove home at 11:45 p.m., where he then called the police. However, Seth's story began to unravel under scrutiny. His claim that he couldn't find his friend's new address after searching for 2 hours seemed implausible. More damning, the forensic report directly contradicted Seth's account. Claudine had been dead for a considerable time before she was found, meaning she could not have been bleeding, and her heart was no longer beating when Seth claimed he administered first aid. Furthermore, there were no signs that CPR had been performed on her body. These discrepancies cast a dark shadow over Seth's account, suggesting that the tragedy that befell his family was not as straightforward as it first appeared. The mounting evidence pointed to a far more sinister scenario, one that would soon place Seth at the center of the investigation.